Well, welcome everybody. So glad to see all of you guys. There's some people I hadn't met before, but most of you I know and love, and I'm so thankful for you being here to celebrate. Ernie Campos. I want to welcome you here and tell you that my name is Dave Lee. I played with Ernie in several bands. Some of those will be playing tonight. One of which, Nacho Ivers Jazz Orchestra, has canceled their rehearsal, which is usually Tuesday nights here, so that we can have this event in place of that rehearsal. So that's why, and we want to thank Crestview Baptist and Jeff Kramer, the pastor, for being gracious to allow us to use this space at no charge, and the air conditioning and all that good stuff. So we appreciate that. Anyway, we're here to play some music, tell some stories, and remember the crazy, zany life of Ernie Campos. Bands and musicians performing, but there will also be opportunities for everybody to share a story throughout the evening. You've already been enjoying the slideshow, and that will continue to run without the music during the event, and then we'll put the music back on after it's over with as well. I want to thank Lisa Clark for putting that together. That was a huge undertaking. We got all these pictures from everywhere in the world, and we even found more at the last minute. And so she's put that together and helped me with so many logistics, and so I appreciate Lisa for that. We're going to be spacing out some of the stories and memories throughout the evening, so when we have a time for sharing, if you don't get in on it and you think of something later you wanted to say, that's going to come up, so just be aware. We'll sort of space those out in between different musical groups and things of that nature as well. We're going to be closing out the evening with a jam session, so if you brought an instrument or a voice, you want to come on up to the stage for that. We'll do a couple of songs. We're going to do There Will Never Be Another You, because that fits Ernie Campos. And then we're going to do one that he would have chuckled at, Don't Get Around Much Anymore. So that'll be fun. Let's see, housekeeping things. Restrooms behind us, you may have already visited and found those, but behind the foyer there is a water fountain and restrooms available for all as well. Let's see. This is not going to be a formal event, if you hadn't already figured that out, because Ernie didn't want it to be. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the story about how this came about later, but we want to honor the family of Ernie Campos. We have John and Orion, his wife, and David and Ken, his husband, here, and then others as well. I don't have all the names yet, but we're so grateful for you all sharing with the musical community tonight. And they're going to be doing a couple of songs as well later on in our celebration send-off for Ernie. So thank them so much for being here. I know that Lisa might have been the closest friend, you know, in my mind, that Ernie Campos had. And he had a lot of friends, that's why you're here. But they had a special bond, and so I'm grateful for all the work that she's put in helping me out and doing that and putting these pictures and logistical things together. And I want to thank everyone who donated financially. It was amazing to see how quickly things mounted. We really had hoped for a different outcome, hadn't we? We wanted that to go towards his physical healing, but it did meet a lot of needs, and his family would attest to that. So thank you so much for the outpouring of love that was demonstrated through that as well. Every penny was a blessing, and Ernie wanted to thank everybody personally, but he just didn't feel like he was physically up to doing that, but he was very grateful for it. Thanks to all the musical participants tonight for making it happen like only musicians can. And I've told you about the restrooms. I'm going to have this microphone up here, so when we do have times for sharing, If you want to come up here, fine. If you don't want to mount the stairs, I'll meet you down here with a microphone, and we can have you share there. Keep your memories, you know, somewhat compact, because you know, a lot of us would like to share a lot, and it could be a very long evening if we don't make it somewhat concise. But we'll have plenty of time. And by the way, this is being videotaped, so you can email me later to find out how, if you want to see it or have someone access it that wasn't able to be here. My email is davesjazz@gmail.com, DAVESJAZZ. Pretty easy to remember. And I'll help you get in touch with that. Okay, here we go. Lisa Clark.
Thank you, Dave. I got to be with Ernie about a week before he let go, and he knew this was going to be taking place at some point. And I asked him what he would like me to do musically, because he wanted it to be a jam session. And he said, "You know what my favorite song is that you do." And it's one of my original songs. Here's State of Grace. In the center of my being is where I want to be, grounded and balanced and calm. When I maintain this stature with grace and with ease, I can handle anything that comes along. I've been challenged so many times, been pushed to the edge, and I faltered. But that doesn't mean that I can't get it right. It's here and now that matters. I know what to do. I know how to be, and that's living in peace. I'm taking God's cue. I'm living in harmony, and that creates a state of grace. So I'll focus on love and friendship and know that everything's going just right. Expressing my gratitude in so many ways, morning, noon, and night. Life is nicer when we see the good. Each moment's a gift and a blessing. So I listen to Spirit. It's now understood. My heart is here confessing. I know what to do. I know how to be, and that's living in peace. I'm taking God's cue, living in harmony, and that creates a state of grace. Grace. In the center of my being is where I want to be, grounded, balanced, and calm.
Lisa. We're going to have the Ken Ragsdale group come on up here, and so we'll just grab a chair, guys that are using these stands. So in each of the chances that we have for setting up a band. We'll take a moment if somebody wants to come up, share a story, share a memory, whatever. We'll do it, and we'll be doing that throughout the evening. So I know it's always hard for the first one, but you have something you want to start with? Come on up. It's not church, you know. Ernie didn't want that. He didn't want anything formal and traditional, so I'm just here to celebrate who he was to us, who he is. Okay, well, we'll have more opportunities for you later. This is a band that was begun in 1959 by Ken Ragsdale. He passed away about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, in his 90s, and he played with the band until he was in his early 90s. He played bari sax, and Ernie wound up taking over Ken's chair eventually, and so that's where he sat. Brian is playing bari at this point after Ernie passed, and come on up, Chris Camperell, he's joining us here. So we're going to do a couple of songs. Both had little bari features on them. This first one is called Ball and the Jack. I'll explain that in some of the comments that I'll share about Ernie a little bit later. Yeah, you need that clarinet on this, Ken. By the way, the next group after some more sharing will be the Reedmeisters, just so you guys know what's happening next. This is called Ken's Tune, written for Ken Ragsdale, and it also features the Barry that Ernie played, written by Dick Schott, who was the tenor sax player for many years with the Star Orchestra. Ken Ragsdale Orchestra. And Reed Meisters, go ahead and come on up while you're coming. We'll have some more, another opportunity. Wow, that rain is coming in. So who's thought of something they'd like to share? Yeah, come on. It's Kathy, right? Come on up, Kathy.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I've known Ernie since, I'm not going to look at y'all. I won't look at you. Since late 80s, early 90s, I didn't know the music side very well, but I knew the tools, junkyard, thrifting, garage selling, if you knew Ernie. So there was this one story that we like to tell, and I had a friend of mine, and she was going through this divorce, and you know, you go through this divorce and you just hate your spouse. And she took the remaining of his stuff down to San Antonio, and she said he wasn't there. She knocked on the door, and he wasn't there. And so she drove back to Austin, and she had all his tools, snap-on tools and stuff. And if you know how Ernie is about tools, you know how he has 7, 8, 9, 10 to the backups to his original tools. And so they're telling the story, and the whole time Ernie's like, oh my God, oh no, oh my God. And she said, well, and she was just so mad. And she said, so we just pulled over. She said, I'm not going to just be held captive to this man about these tools. And I'm like, why didn't you just drop him off at his door? And she's like, no, don't give him the pleasure of this. So she just pulled over to some business and dropped him in the dumpster. And Ernie, we're at dinner, some restaurant, and Ernie's sitting there, was like, oh God, oh God. You could just see like he's having this heart palpitations. He was so into this story. And I'm thinking, was this recently? You know, like, I'll go with you. Well, I mean, we'll go right now, and we'll drive down there and go to this dumpster. You know, and we're kind of getting into it. She's like, and he's like, well, was it today? And she's like, no, honey, this was like a week ago. And he's like, oh my God, oh my God. So we always tell this story because it's just how emotional he would get. But I've known him just so long, and we would just tease each other all the time. And the other quick story, hopefully they're set up now, was the first time I went biking with him at the Valaway. And he's like so into it. He has this bike and everything. And I went over to his house to pick him up. And I'm not professional at this at all. I'm wearing like these floppy shorts and t-shirt, oversized t-shirt. And Ernie has bike shorts and some other shirt, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm looking at him like, I can't be seen in public with you like this. So that was pretty much how our relationship was. I think we just teased each other endlessly about everything.
Thank you. One more before we have the Reedmeisters do some sharing. Anybody else? I'd be thinking. Ernie had lots of stories. All right, this is Steve Sauerwein. He's the leader, so I'll let him take it over.
Appreciate it, Dave. Thank you. My name's Steve Sauerwein. Ernie was one of the first players that I met when I came to Austin about 10 years ago. And he was my wingman in Austin Jazz Band on alto for about 5 years. And when I had this crazy notion at one time of putting together an alt-saxophone polka band, he was there from day one. He was ready to give this thing a try. And of course, he played with us all the way until our last gig in November this past year. So we thought we'd do a couple things in his honor. He's played a lot of chicken dances over the years, that's for sure. So we're going to lighten things up a little bit. So this is an audience participation. We always do an Ein Prosit, a German toast, but this German toast is for Ernie. So when we do the 1, 2, 3 drink, just imagine you've got your glass of beer and raise it high in the air for Ernie. This is his toast. And then we're going to follow this up by a song we always play, In Heaven There Is No Beer. And Ernie will be the one that really knows if that's the case, because he is in heaven for sure. And he's an awesome guy. Of course, we're going to miss him a lot. So let's go ahead and do an Ein Prosit and a little Reedmeisters tribute to Ernie. Now I'm going to say Ziggy Zaga, and you say, oh, wait, ready? Ziggy Zaga, Ziggy Zaga! Louder, Ziggy Zaga, Ziggy Zaga! One more, Ziggy Zaga, Ziggy Zaga! Prost!
Any other stories from the Reedmeisters or anybody else here? Who's been thinking of one? You can tell it. Sean, right?
I'll do one real quick while everybody else is thinking. Everybody who knows Ernie, he loves his music, he loves his pets, and other things he loves is desserts. So this has to do with desserts. Kathy and I've known him as long as I've known Kathy, so I guess we've been married 20 years now, so it's been at least that long or longer. But we went out of town, and when we go out of town, Ernie would come over and watch our cats. So we went to Bahamas one time, and you know, you always want to get somebody a gift or something for doing you a favor, and Ernie's always a nice person, he's always willing to do a favor for you, so we were looking around, what can we get him? Well, he likes desserts, but his favorite one is tiramisu. He said, well, they don't have that here, it's not going to keep. So they had a gift shop with those Tortuga rum cakes. If anybody's seen those before, they had some for samples, and we tried and said, you know, this is pretty good. She goes, but it's got rum in it. I said, no, it's baked, so there's no alcohol in it at all. So we got one for him, and we came back, and he was at our house watching our cats, and you know, we were doing handoffs and everything, and we gave him the rum cake, and he said, oh yeah, that's pretty good, I'll try it. It's not tiramisu, but we apologize, we couldn't get that for him. So he's leaving the house, he's driving down the road, and we said, you know, we didn't ask him, what do you think about that rum cake? And before he got out of the neighborhood, he said, I finished it all already. That's how much he loves his desserts.
And he was honest, too. He confessed up. One more? Okay, let's be thinking. Lisa asked me recently, when did you and Ernie meet? And, wow, you know, I thought about it, and I don't know the answer. I can't, maybe somebody else remembers it. It probably has something to do with him playing in Nacho. It's my earliest memory of being connected to Ernie, but I didn't really remember the circumstances that brought us together, but it just seems like Ernie has always been there to me. And that made me realize exactly how knowing Ernie was for so many of us. He didn't come into our lives all flashy and flamboyant, but he was very present, and he filled our glasses with the wine of kindness, loyalty, honesty, humility, and diligence. Ernie's personality didn't cry out for attention like some of ours might. In fact, he could almost seem invisible compared to others. But we all knew when he wasn't there and isn't here. I enjoyed talking to Ernie, driving in from out-of-town gigs where we might have carpooled together. And I noticed how Ernie never put himself first, even when it came to small things like seating arrangements while we were carpooling. I noticed Ernie would always be the one to serve. He would always just immediately go to the back seat, assuming someone else might want the front seat. And he never took that first place position. He just always felt like it was his job to support other people. And I love that about Ernie. He often quietly listened to conversations without the need to give his opinion. But make no mistake, he had incredible depth and cared passionately about things. One of the songs Nacho is going to play in a bit featured Ernie on tenor, and it was the song Nuttin', or I Got Plenty of Nuttin' from the musical Porgy and Bess. And the song, in a way, fits Ernie's personality. I think Ernie at times underestimated himself. He saw so many who might have more talent or standing, and he often felt less than. Steve shared maybe a little bit more about Ernie's passion for improving on improvising when he recently decided to enroll and take some private lessons from Steve and enroll in combo classes at ACC. And he talked to me about how he didn't feel like he really achieved what he should have in his life, specifically in music. And even at that age, he was still wanting to achieve something, and I think that's remarkable. But he didn't feel like he had made it yet, and I tried to encourage him to two things: to go for it. It's never too late. Go for it. Make this a challenge for you. But regardless, know that you are already making a contribution, a big one, to a lot of people's lives and to different musical groups as well. Another song the Ken Ragsdale Orchestra just played that I mentioned was entitled Ball in the Jack, which was titled after the popular expression among railroad workers in the early 20th century to mean going at full speed. Most of the time Ernie would show up for a rehearsal or a gig, he was balling the jack. You know that, right? Packing so many things into his life, he would often be up against the clock and come barreling in. And I would ask, how's life going? How are things, Ernie? And his usual answer was fine, great, and all that. But when you really tried to dig down deep, he would usually say, busy. I'm just trying to catch up. I just feel like I need to, I can't stay afloat. And I need to simplify things. He was always sort of aware of the fact that he wanted to get to a place where things were not as hectic and not as crazy, maybe where he wasn't balling the jack as much. And he was keenly aware, I think as most of us are, that we are our own worst enemy at times. I think if Ernie were here tonight, he would tell us all to slow down and enjoy each other and life more. When I first asked Ernie about whether he wanted any kind of memorial service or anything, he wasn't really interested in the traditional religious service. Not that he wasn't spiritual, don't misunderstand that, but he just wasn't interested in that particular thing. But the idea of friends and family like tonight, gathering around music and fun and remembrances of Ernie, did appeal to him. He liked that idea, made him smile. And he liked it more for how it would make us feel than anything else. I jokingly said to Ernie, it's a shame that these things are always after somebody dies, because they don't get to hear all those wonderful things everybody says about you and all that stuff. I said, so maybe we ought to do this before you pass, because we knew it was going to happen by this time. And he kind of laughed at it and everything, but then he got to thinking about it and he decided, I do like the idea of that. And not so he could hear all the great things that might be said about it, but so he could witness the celebration, the feeling good that came about through this community. And so we were actually going to try to pull that off, but he just didn't last long enough for us to put it together. But that's another interesting thing about how this all came to be. I think he's viewing it though and enjoying what we're doing. I recently lost another great friend from high school days just last week, and it caused me to reflect on the gift of friendship. I count, just as Ernie did, so many of you as friends. And while I don't think I've ever had exclusively one best friend, I've had many that qualified, and Ernie did. Probably my wife is my best friend, but nobody else has been like the one and only, but he certainly qualified. If there hadn't been somebody else that was just as good of a best friend, Ernie could have been it, because he had everything that I needed in a friend, and I know you know that too. There's no doubt in my mind he would have done anything in his power to help me if I ever had a need, and I will miss him terribly. And I told him that. I was glad I had the opportunity to tell him that. I also told him I expect to see him again. All right, who else would like to share something before we get another musical group up here? Let's see, where are we in the program? Steve, if you want to go ahead and he's up there. He's ready to go. Let's do one, John.
Thanks, Dave. I haven't had a chance to meet most of you here, but for those who don't know, Ernie had two brothers. I'm the middle brother, and Ernie was the eldest, and my younger brother David is here as well. And I want to say that the outpouring of support and friendship through music and the celebration of his life is so moving to us that it's hard to put in words and to overstate that. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is that for anyone who has lost a close relationship in their lives, if you are ever asked to describe the person who has passed away, the things we normally do is ask the people who knew him best or knew him or her best. And you ask friends, you ask family, and pretty much when you start getting feedback from the people who are going into their memory banks to recollect the observations they had when remembering that person, a picture starts to develop. And since Ernie passed away a month ago, I want to say we've gotten a lot of feedback about him. And the picture that has been formed from that feedback is the virtues that he had, that he was very personable, very likable, and very unpretentious. And one of the things that I saw on a website of one of the bands who was in Rhythm Congress, in their memoriam towards Ernie, it said, Ernie has the distinction of being the nicest person in the band, if not all of Austin. And it was quite moving to hear that description of him. And one of the things that I did want to share, 2 stories with you, is that most of you got to know Ernie in his later years, but you don't have insight into who he was in his youth. And because he and I were only a year and a half apart, I wanted to share that experience with 2 stories. And in his youth, Ernie viewed life as an adventure to be lived and experienced. And because we were so close in age, I would tag along with him for those adventures. And normally we would end up getting in trouble with my mother because of those adventures for having done something stupid. But one of those stories that I'll share is that for many men here, when they were boys and may have had BB guns, we had BB guns as well. And one time he got the idea that it would be a lot of fun if we were shooting BBs at moving targets versus static targets. So he convinced me that if I got a trash can lid as a shield and started running around, that he would start aiming at me, but I'd be okay because I had the trash can lid as protection. So here I go, start running with the trash can lid. And what had happened is we ran into problems because the BB gun we had been modified by him when he sawed off with a hacksaw the end of the barrel to make it look like a sawed-off shotgun he saw in a Burt Reynolds movie. He liked the way it looked. But having sawed off the barrel messed up the accuracy of the trajectory of the BB. So when I started running with the trash can lid and he fired at me, I got hit in the head. And I immediately dropped the trash can lid and I started crying. So he runs over to me and says, be quiet, because if mom hears you, she knows something's up, right? So to get me to stop crying, he says, look, I'll take the trash can lid and I'll let you fire at me. And I said, all right. So he starts running in the yard and I fire at him, and again, because the trajectory of the BB was so messed up, I shot him in the leg. And so he starts crying, and I ran over to him because I was scared that I had injured him really bad. So needless to say, my mom heard both of us crying, and she came out and spanked both of us. But one other story I'll say about him, and this time it was my adventure that got us in trouble, is that one summer in our backyard, my dad had built an open shed where he would park cars that he was working on. And in that shed, there was a big old wasp nest like the size of a cherry pie. And he was going to knock it down, but he got busy and took off. So I wanted to get in his good graces and say that I would knock it off while he was gone and get an attaboy when he'd come back. So we didn't have any wasp spray, so I decided to do the old-fashioned way and throw something at it and knock it down. So what we had at the time were these plastic guns that were spring-loaded, and you would load these suction cup darts into them. And I got the idea that if I used corn dog skewer, those pointed corn dog skewer darts, instead of the suction cups, I could fire it at the wasp nest and knock it down. So when he found out what I was doing, I went outside and he followed me, and he sat down on the hood of the car to watch me start shooting these darts at the wasp nest. So I fired off the first one, and landed like an arrow in the wasp nest, but it didn't knock it down. So then I fired the second one, and again it landed like an arrow, and the wasps were getting agitated at this point. And so when I shot the third one, about 20 wasps just took off in unison right at Ernie, and started stinging him. And so he started running through the whole yard, and eventually he fell on the ground, was flopping like a fish out of water. And he had like 20 stings, and again, I ended up getting in trouble for that. But anyway, we got into a lot of trouble, a lot, and life was an adventure, and that's just a glimpse of what he was like in his youth.
I think they're still compiling studies of adolescent males, how their brains work. Steve Sauerwein's going to share a Cannonball Adderley rendition of Stars Fell in Alabama.
Yeah, so we're going to do a tune for Ernie. Most of the private students I teach aren't able to drive yet. They're very young, but it's always refreshing to get somebody that's older that still has a passion for music, and Ernie always had a passion all through his entire life. So rhythm section, come on up. That was scary. And so we're going to do a tune. Ernie loved Cannonball Adderley, so this is Stars Fell from Alabama.
Thank you, Steve, for the rhythm section. Yeah, that's wonderful. Ernie enjoyed that, I know. Rhythm Congress, go ahead and come on up, guys. They're going to do some very traditional celebration service songs. So I think Seesaw and 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, but these are some of Ernie's favorites. So come on up, Rhythm Congress, and another person or two have a story you want to tell or anything? Oh, Mary Liz, on the way. Here, I'll meet you. Well, you won't be on the video, so if you don't mind coming up here. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Marilyn Shepard, and I was second alto sax to Ernie's second tenor sax for, I don't know, 18 plus years in Nacho. And Ernie was just the happiest person, always greeted me with a smile, and we talked about our dogs, and he remembered them, my dog always by name, and asked me how she was doing, and we commiserated on improvisation, our lack of ability for a little bit, and Ernie, of course, turned around and worked on it, and just got it going for himself. But I have very fond memories of Ernie. I remember one time we were playing at the Domain, and it was probably August and 105 degrees, and Ernie comes in with his tenor, and he forgot his mouthpiece because he had gotten them all out of the case and gotten them washed up and left them wherever they were. But fortunately, I think there was a sub for tenor that day, for a lead tenor. But anyway, somebody had an extra mouthpiece, so the show went on. But like Dave said, Ernie was always there. He was always there with a smile, and always there with open heart and a great listener. And I will always cherish a couple of decades knowing Ernie.
Thank you. They're quite the team. I never knew what they were talking about in front of me. Okay, this is Cliff Ernst at the piano, leader of
Let's tune it up, guys. Check, 1, 2. Dave, you were making me wonder about when I first met Ernie, and I honestly, does anybody remember in the band when it seems like he's always been in this band? So we are about the opposite of the music you've heard so far. We're kind of a rock and roll band. We don't have a guitar player tonight, so we apologize for that. But when we heard about this, we sure wanted to be a part of it. Ernie's been with us was with us for years and years, and this was his favorite song. Although I'm not sure why. The song is called "Seesaw." It's an old rhythm and blues song, like a lot of the music we play, and it's about the playground instrument, but it's the playground equipment, which when we play this song now, a lot of kids say, "What's a seesaw?" They don't even know what it was, but I think I can tell by the gray hair out there that most of you probably know what a seesaw is. This song is about a dysfunctional relationship, about a relationship with somebody who's up and down and all around. And I always thought it was strange that Ernie liked this song, because Ernie was the complete opposite of that. I mean, he was the most steady guy ever. And maybe he liked the words of this song because they were the kind of the opposite of him. Or maybe like the old American Bandstand, he just thought it had a good beat, you could dance to it, I'll give it a 10. So that's what we're going to do for you, is a song called Seesaw. I'm not amplified, so you have to imagine that there's a big loud guitar in here in the middle of this thing too. Going up, down, all around, it's like a seesaw. Sometimes you tell me, hey, I'm a sweet candy man. Sometimes, baby, never know where I stand. You lift me up when I'm on the ground. Soon as I get up now, you send me tumbling down. Your love is like a seesaw. Your love is like a seesaw. Your love is like a seesaw. Going up, down, all around is like a seesaw. When you kiss me and I like it, and I ask you to kiss me again. When I reach for you, you don't mean out of sight. You change just like the wind, and that ain't right. That ain't right, girl. You know that just ain't right. Your love is like a seesaw. Your love is like a seesaw, baby. Your love is like a seesaw. Going up, down, all around, just like a seesaw. Your love is like a seesaw. Your love is like a seesaw, baby. Your love is like a seesaw. Going up, down, all around, just like a seesaw.
Thank you. Thank you, Ernie. Ernie liked, like I said, we play a lot of old rhythm and blues songs, and Ernie really liked rhythm and blues songs, and so we thought the second song we do for you is an old rhythm and blues song called, most people don't know the song by its real name, which is Soulsville, but we know it by 634-5789. It's a telephone song. Where's Lisa? Lisa Clark's going to help out on the chorus on this song. Thank you, Lisa. Great. Okay.
You need a little loving, call on me. Oh yeah. And if you want some of my kissing, call me, baby. That's all you gotta do. Oh, I'll be right here at home. All you gotta do is pick up your telephone and I'm out. 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. 6, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. If you need a little hug, call on me, Lord have mercy. And if you want some of my kissing, call me, baby. That's all you gotta do. No more lonely nights. You dance with us.
be alone. All you gotta do is pick up your telephone now, baby. 6345789. 6345789. Oh, I'll be right there just as soon as I can. And I might be a little late now, like rain was never late. I hope that you call my hand, yeah. That's my number, baby. 45789. And if you need a little loving, you can count on me. Oh yeah. And if you want some of my kissing, call on me, baby. You better believe you can. No more lonely nights will I be alone. All you gotta do is dial me on the telephone. Call me 6345789. That's my number, baby. 45789. Just call me 6345789. Just dial that telephone. 45789. Call me, baby. Call me on my telephone, baby. 6345789. 6345789. 6345789. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ernie.
Let's hear it for Rhythm Congress. That was great. All right, we're going to invite Ernie's family to come on up. They have some songs to share with us, so you guys go ahead and come up and get set up. And while they're doing that, if there's another story that anybody has thought of that you want to come up and tell us about, come on up.
As a problem with most of us in this room, we play in several groups. And we get to rehearsal. We know everybody in the rehearsal. And when rehearsal ends, we leave. We don't get to know the people that well outside of my musical friends. And one time after a Reedmeister's gig down in San Antonio, instead of just heading home, I wanted to grab a bite to eat. Nobody wanted to go, but I talked Ernie into going. So Ernie and I went down to the River Walk, and it was great. We had dinner, and really got to know each other a little bit better. And one of the things I just wanted to convey to his brothers here and his family is that by our second margarita, I guess, he started really opening up, and he expressed how much he owed to his brothers and his parents, and how much he missed his parents. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I guess I'm the spokeswoman. I met Ernie through my best friend David, his brother, about 35 years ago, and he impressed me so much, and John too. But I just remember Ernie's long black braid and his coolness. He was, I don't know, he just always seemed so cool. And over the years, David used to say here tonight, he always encouraged other people. Like, I didn't know the extent of his talent until I'm hearing all of you, but so he encouraged me with my music and writing songs and everything, and his brother John also, who's now learning accordion, and we just wanted to be a part of this musically with you too, so thank you. So this song it's called A Little More Blue. David requested I sing it, and it's about when you go through something hard like this loss, sometimes you appreciate the sky, the blueness of the sky more after you come out of the darkness. And as Dave said too, we need to remember to appreciate friendships and slow down a little bit, appreciate the music. So. Don't mean to be stupid or too cliche, but lately the words come out that way.
Thank you, Erica, John, and Morion, you guys, for sharing those. Those are great. Nacho, come on up, and while Nacho's coming up, we'll take one or two quick stories. I think Daniel had something, Walt as well. Come on around if you can, because that way you're in the video.
Hi, I'm Daniel Garza. I play with Rhythm Congress, and I only know Ernie through that band. So my first experience at playing with that and meeting Ernie was not only did the man have hair, he had amazing hair. He had amazing, and I was like, oh God, that guy. Anyway, oh yeah, I just wanted to rub up against him to get some of the luck. But he was also the sharpest dressed player on stage. Every gig, no matter what it was, big, small, in a gym, in a club, he was always the sharpest dressed guy. And I actually thought the first time I performed with them that he was queued up to be eye candy for the band. So that's my memory of Ernie. Great, great guy, hardest worker, an amazing loss.
My name's Walt, and I played with Ernie in like 7 bands. I don't know. There's a lot of cross-pollination in the music scene here. But I think in Austin Jazz Band, he played every single sax chair at one time or another over the time we were together. And I tried to think of one story, and I didn't come up with one thing, but I think you spend probably, I don't know, 17, 18 years with the person. What I find interesting is everybody's stories start to line up, even though we all knew him from some different way, either from a family or from a band or from a neighbor or whatever. And the thing that really impresses me is what I experienced with Ernie. It was like, hey man, can you pick up my book and I'll meet you halfway, because I know he lives, way out of town. He said, no, I'll come by your place. And whatever it was like, the least you're asking him for a favor, and he goes out of his way to make it convenient for you. There was another time, just a small thing where he, I had this lawnmower, I couldn't get it to work, and he was a whiz with motors, man. He knew how to get things going. And he fixed it, and it worked, and it was still working to this day. But he's a very sweet, sweet man. I know he's continuing that on in his next expression, and we are all richer for having known him.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, you see these stories about these spies, and they have their compartmentalized lives. They have a wife over here and another family over here. And, just like Walt said, Ernie was, what you saw is what you got. He was authentic and transparent. And so everybody knew him, whether we knew each other in that same context or not. This is the band that Ernie, I think is where I met Ernie as he came into this band, Nacho Average Jazz Orchestra. We're going to do that song that I mentioned from Porgy and Bess called Nuttin'. So we'll start with that, and then Lisa will be up next to sing with us as a tune, and then we have one more after that. Then we'll ask one more chance for anybody that wants to share something, and then we'll close out with a couple of jam session tunes. So everybody who's got an instrument, please come on up and join us for that. This is Nuttin'. Frank DeMar filling in, and I sent him a recording of Ernie, the way he kind of always started that do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do on that tenor solo, and Frank got it down. All right, Lisa, let's do this Over the Rainbow.
Kent does. It's been a while. Ernie and I met in this band. Yep.
We start tempo at measure 5. Still was 4 chords there at the beginning.
When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found. Heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds brighten up the highway, there's a rainbow highway to be found. From your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, Bluebirds fly over the rainbow. Why, then oh why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't
Ooh, thank you, Lisa. I don't know how she can do that with the emotion that song brings. As I mentioned earlier tonight, Ernie cared deeply about certain things, and though he would be the last of us to create conflict and division among friends, he was passionate about the direction our country has been going, and he wanted to make a difference. When I picked him up on the way to the last gig that he played, he was unable to load his instruments. So I told him, get in the car and rest, and Brian and I would load everything up. And Brian told me at the back of the car, because he had gotten there before me, that he had never seen Ernie so upset. This was late November. Things were moving fast in our country. And no doubt he was upset partly because of the pain in his body and the frustration that was beginning to boil over, but also because of the issues that he saw surrounding justice and freedom here in our country. And I say this only to represent Ernie faithfully as one who saw every person as important as the other. Before he passed, I told him that I had decided to end every gig that I had any control of with a song by Oscar Peterson called Hymn to Freedom, written at the height of the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s. I was working on this arrangement, but unfortunately Ernie never got to perform it with us. But I want to dedicate it, as we close tonight, to his memory and his heart for others as we share with you a song of hope for all of us, Hymn to Freedom. Every heart joins every heart, and together yearns for liberty. That's when we'll be free. When every hand joins every hand, and together molds our destiny. That's when we'll be free. Any hour, any day, the time soon comes when thanks again to everybody. Is there any last story? Oh, well, Lisa, you needed to share something.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and do that now, and we'll
Okay.
get set for the jam session.
All right. I had to write it out a little bit. So yeah, Ernie and I were really close, and like brother and sister. And we met in this wonderful band in '06 when Dave invited me to be the singer, and in about 2008, I got to think about what a nice guy Ernie was. And I figured he was probably married with 6 kids. But we were at one of our gigs, and I just thought to ask him if he was spoken for, as I was single at the time. His reply was, "Who wants to know?" I said, "Well, I did." And we wound up going out on a couple of dates, but we realized that it would work best if we were just friends. I introduced him to friends at a spiritual center where I was the music director, and Walt on the drums back there is the minister, and we hung out and had a lot of fun. You see a lot of these silly photos up here. And we wound up getting closer and closer, and over time. And he also got really close with my mom, who I'd been taking care of since she had a stroke in '04. It was around '08 that Mom started experiencing dementia. Ernie became that friend whom my mom trusted when I wasn't able to be with her. So I paid him to help me with caring for her when I couldn't be there. His love and care for her was priceless, and I am forever grateful. As I've been preparing this slideshow and going through the photographs of them together, it affirms just how strong the love was. I met Brent, my sweetheart, in late 2011. We both feel that Ernie was such a big part of our being able to get to know each other, and he supported us being together so much. Brent and Ernie got really close, and we all had a lot of fun together over the years. Ernie and I had the kind of friendship that we could call each other at any hour if we needed help, or just that close friend to talk with. We both left our homes in the wee small hours to help each other, whether he was having car trouble and I needed to get out there with my AAA card, or I might have to be driven to the emergency room for something. Some of you might not know that Ernie loved punk rock as well as jazz. And he was really into edgy women. He liked edgy women. Anyway, I could go on and on. I feel like, it was just a beautiful friendship. Ernie and Brent and I had a bubble during the pandemic, and they came to my backyard and had Thanksgiving dinner as we were all distanced and masked, and met in Llano for Christmas, and this was, of course, in 2020, before we were vaccinated. He also was incredibly, someone has already mentioned what an incredible talent he was with fixing things. I mean, it was incredible, really. And so I will cut this short because there's just so much to say. But he loved, his favorite cartoon, he told me, was the Looney Tunes Little Red Riding Hood cartoon. I don't know if any of you remember that, but there was a silly song and he absolutely loved it. It went da 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 da. So everybody sing along with me. Da 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 da. I love you, Ernie. We all love you, Ernie. Thank you so much.
My name is Sid Polk, and I didn't know Ernie too well, but I was selling a mouthpiece on eBay in 2011, and it was a Lawton mouthpiece for my tenor, and it sounded great, but I couldn't control it. So he won the auction, and he said, no, I'm going to come to your house. Okay, sure. I didn't know you were local. So he came to my house, and he tried it out, and it sounded great. It was really loud. It sounded great. He loved it, gave me cash, and then he disappeared into the ether. He was very friendly, he smiled a whole bunch, and really loved the mouthpiece. 6 years later, I was invited to play an Austin jazz band, and there he was. He remembered me. He said, oh, Sid, I'm glad to see you. Smiling, shook my hand, clasped my hand, and said, hey, you're the guy who bought that mouthpiece from me. I said, yeah. I said, you still playing? I said, no, it sounded really great, but I couldn't control it. The thing that struck me through the next several years that we were an Austin jazz band together, he would sit in the band and listen to everything that was going on around him. And anything he heard by anybody in the band that he liked, he would react to. Maybe just slightly, he would kind of do this, or he would laugh. Every time I saw him, he would laugh. He would shake my hand. He was always in a good mood. And it was genuine. This was not an act. He was a good man, and I've missed him since before the pandemic, the last time I saw him. Thank you.
Last call before we do our couple of tunes on the way out here, jam session. Anybody else have one? Yeah, come on.
Hi, I don't have a funny story, but I would be remiss if I didn't share one more talent that Ernie had. I bought a house and I had this boring lawn, and I created this beautiful landscape design, but I couldn't execute it alone because it required these heavy flagstones. And so Ernie needed some money, and so I hired Ernie, and we worked together for hours, for days, for weeks, for months. And everything that I'm hearing here, how everybody describes Ernie, to a T. I mean, I worked alongside him sometimes till 9, 10 o'clock. We'd put lights on, we'd go get barbecue, he'd bring his dog, and no matter how hard we worked in heat and any weather, he was always smiling, always in a good mood. And he did an amazing job. So there's a part of his work that is physically at 6725 Blauer Drive, this beautiful flagstone walkway that he did, and we did this spiral design in the yard, and it's still there, native plants. I sold the house many years ago, but it's still there. And I'm gonna go by just to remember Ernie. And I was just really honored to have gotten to know him. Thank you.
Okay, if you have an instrument, come on up. We're going to do these things, and we'll enjoy it. The slides are going to be going, so don't be bashful. Bring those instruments up here. Just come on up, Steve. I'm going to have you lead this thing. We're starting with There Will Never Be Another You in E flat. Yeah, I probably should. that's really fun for Ernie. We're about to do the last half. At least if you want to scat, you can. Was that the one song?
Well, we have, I picked the blues.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
That's the way to go, right?
Yep.
Here it goes, y'all. Thanks again, everybody. Be safe out there. Okay. Thank you.